What's this word? Minajatwa? Minajatwa? Okay, this story is set in Japan. This is a Japanese term I'm not aware of. Let me look it up. Oh man. Okay, so that's how you write minajatwa when you can't spell for But let me come back to that. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson. This is part 3 of the series, The Shame of Kink. Now, as a quick note, from here onwards in this series, I did a whole lot of writing, as far as notes and scripting for the show, because I felt that was necessary in order to cover things in an organized way that I'd feel satisfied with. So you'll notice I'll be speaking faster, going at a more brisk and less meandering pace. We're jogging here and stuff strolling. Since I tend to be more casual, and that's my vision for the overall show, I wanted to explain that difference and also make it very clear that yes, this stuff I've already done a ton of pre-writing for over a couple of months, so I'm not coming up with all of this on the fly. I'm not at that level yet, fam. Additionally, I now realize that this is going to have way more episodes than I originally planned, so we will be taking a break soon to cover other topics. Now, as promised, I'll kick this episode off with a bit of talk about black men. Last episode, I talked about some of the stereotypes faced by both sexes, like that of the willing slave, and by black women, like that of the willing, unrapeable creature to be used as a sex object and a debased canvas for experimenting with your sexuality and any of its perversions you may wish to bring to light. What about black men, though? Well, in the portrayals sponsored by and used to promote white supremacist mentalities, and much of this is done by oh-so-liberal and lined progressive Hollywood, remember? There are two main sides of the spectrum, or ends of the spectrum. There's the weakened, effeminate, cowardly, sniveling black man who in no way serves as a physical, psychological, and/or sexual rival to the normal/heroic white man. He's either run around by the women he engages with, or removes himself from normal relationships with women. This archetype is one I often see favored by left-wingers currently, whose idea of diversity and representation is men of color sexually injuring each other. Woo freaking who. Round of applause. You definitely love people of color so much. But that's what's palatable to you, isn't it? Mm-hmm. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the black man as indeed masculine, but masculinity in a grotesque, exaggerated form. He's violent, sexually rapacious, and uncontrolled, sometimes combining these elements by being predator and threat to his own woman and/or women of other races. The image of black men as a threat, whom the virtuous white female must be protected from, is the classic embodiment of that. Not that there have never been cases like that in real life, but in general it's a massive script flip, given what I went into last time about what kind of sexual predation was actually being carried out en masse. Meanwhile, the white man must combat him by being the noble image of masculinity. A savior, a protector, a gentleman, and someone capable of self-restraint and of showing due respect to the woman. This stereotype is also extended to the men of other races. They're either the weak, cowardly detritus that a woman naturally struggles to find respect for, or they're the shady, vile, rapacious exploiters and predators from which a noble, kindly Caucasian man must save her, or there's some combo of the two. For their part, women of other races face similar portrayals as black women. If it's not some wild, uncivil creature, it's as a sexually lascivious and eternally available piece of meat waiting around for an interested penis, and maybe vulva, to show up. Asian women in particular face this image of being the docile servant and sex toy, and there's this particular phenomenon of Western men who target women from Asian countries or of Asian descent for precisely those reasons. And besides the stereotyping, there can be legitimate cultural elements where women don't stand up enough for themselves, and also how they've sometimes been fed these unrealistic images from Hollywood. They think a Western man will be Prince Charming, not some psycho waiting to sodomize you, and whom women of his own country would generally regard as repulsive. That minajatwa story I referenced earlier actually embraces multiple stereotypes. We have the main male character, a Japanese man. He is both masochistic and sadistic, and is subjected to sexually injurious behavior like sodomy, which he relishes, along with other injurious behavior like deliberate wounding and drawing of blood, as well as being the perpetrator of those same behaviors and other acts of harm and absolute debasement. Now, the story is set in Japan, and I initially got the impression that all three characters were of Asian descent. The man, the wife who considers her purpose to be existing as his servant and sex slave, and who's actually embarrassed about and sees it as a failing to not be able to start fulfilling all his demented, hatred-fueled wishes. And then the third person being the woman they're drawing into this sick dynamic. However, as I've done more digging, I found that the new woman, who is the main character of the story, is supposed to be Italian-Canadian. Now that in and of itself doesn't preclude also being Asian, but it seems more like she's meant to be Caucasian, and especially since the author has the gall to emphasize this story as an interracial romance. But as I've stated before, it's not that it's in any way okay to subject people to this if they are white. It's just that there's an extra element with other ethnicities because of how it intensifies and follows in the same vein as injustices and mistreatment and stereotyping that's been going on for decades and even centuries. And besides the misogyny aspect, this dynamic still plays into stereotypes, just different ones. In this case, it's the idea of men of color being the ones who are violent, sadistic threats to white women. And the story still contains that element of the Asian woman as a submissive sex toy, mind you, just with a different character than our Italian-Canadian main character. While I don't know if she was subjected to some of the worst stuff, like being sodomized and lapping up the tasty fecal traces in the guy's anus, the wife is definitely still one of the submissives and gets the degradation of being a quote-unquote willing slave, openly cheated on spouse, and doing things like mouth-swapping her husband's semen with the other woman. But hey, she also gets to help sexually harm and degrade the husband and also the other woman, so I guess it makes it better, right? Empowerment, am I right? I mean, if we're to believe the author and the folks who prop up her content, this is a beautiful, loving, healthy romance, and we should be extra excited because one of the characters gets pregnant and we bring a child into this nightmarish interracial rape and sex slavery fantasy, love story. And apparently folks don't get enough free abuse and disrespect, so they should totally buy her books and pay her for the favor of spitting in their faces. Trust me, folks, this topic is the gift that keeps on giving, and we're just getting started. Next episode, we'll pick up right where we left off. I'll continue my discussion of this writer and this particular storyline of hers, spare a thought for the child, because she sure isn't, and maybe start talk on our next Hall of Shame author, if there's enough time. But for now, it's time to sign off. Before I do sign off, a quick reminder that you can check out the episode's webpage for the full resource roundup. This time we have links to a few quick articles about the plight of Black actors and actresses in both past and present Hollywood. And most excitingly for me, I was able to find Classified X. This is a documentary I watched years ago, and I couldn't even recall the name by now. Heck, I wasn't even sure it would still be hosted anywhere to find. But after some digging, I was able to locate it, and I'm so excited. If you only visit one link from this episode's resource roundup, that needs to be the one. I've already started on it again myself, plus I have another documentary or two I plan to check out when I get the time. As another quick note, because of the way my workflow is set up, the subtitled YouTube videos aren't completed until a while after the audio for the episode is released, and you can typically expect it to be several days before both the video and audio embeds are added to the blog posts. To have everything released on the same day will be quite rare. Anyways, I'd like to thank you for spending this time with me today. It's very much appreciated. And if you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to leave a like, share, or review on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, other social media, or whichever platform you use to listen. Be blessed and stay salty.